Welcome, Leigh. Welcome everyone to episode 3 of the Road to Arc. So we've got last year's champion, as you can see, Bloodied Brush. I've got his Instagram up here, so you guys, I'll just pan through it. Oh, there it is, the trophy. How's that?
The little one I get to take home.
Yeah, and also what we've got, I need to turn up your audio. There we go. I remember this time. Also, what we have is Leigh's done all of our work for us. I think we're going to set this as a precedence for every other guest. He's got questions for himself. So, not that Marvin and I are always super prepared, but this time we've also got questions from Leigh to Leigh for him to answer. Yeah, so
questions are open to chat as well. So
if you guys have some genuine questions, I'd say genuine questions, then feel free to ask. I will sort of interrupt now and then and ask the question that you guys have asked as well. That's from you, Leigh. No crayon questions. So first of all, 2024 champion of Arc. That's pretty wild, hey?
Yeah. So what was your journey to get there? So like, when did you get into the hobby and everything?
All right, so I'll get into the Arc stuff in a little bit, but my journey in hobby, I started when I was in grade 6, I would say, and that was 27 years ago now.
Oh boy.
So yeah, I am a veteran of the hobby, I guess you could say. I remember a friend in primary school came up and talked to me about Space Marines, and you can paint them whatever color you could, like these little toy soldiers, and they'd battle each other. And my imagination was hooked straight away. I hadn't even seen a model yet, and my imagination was hooked. And I managed to get my first couple of sets being the old Beastman models, if you remember those.
I remember. Yeah, they're still floating around. They are still floating around
somewhere.
So it shows you how old they are. If that's what 28 years ago you got into it or whatever it was, it's like crazy.
Yeah. So then I got my next lot of models, which were Tyranid models. So I was just getting bits and pieces of random stuff. I remember my granddad actually took me to the Games Workshop in the city, and he bought me a box of Gene Stealers, or that's what I got. But then the salesperson did that little "would you like fries" with that, and ended out with paints and I think some more models as well. So that's where it truly started, and then it just escalated from there. So got out of the hobby for a little while, as most people do, sort of out of high school and into adult life. And then my best friend, he got me back into the hobby when he moved from Tasmania to Melbourne. He's like, "Oh, I heard you like Warhammer stuff." And I was like, "Oh, I used to." And I was very fortunate at that time to be working on a TV show, and I was earning some money. So that's a whole other past life, Leigh. And with that extra disposable income, I bought the 5th edition starter set, or not the starter set, the the big Chaos Space Marine Battle Force from 5th edition. And it was like
I only got into the hobby in 6th edition. Yeah.
Well, for anyone out there, if they remember that big army set, I got that, the old metal demon prints. I was just splashing heaps of money, and I was just hooked back since then. So then it was probably a couple of years later, I entered my first tournament, which was the Phoenix Games Association. So Dan Timlin, and who used to run a Games Workshop in Southland or Chadstone, I think it was Chadstone. He was the president then, and a whole bunch of other guys there as well. They ran a 750-point tournament, and there's about 50 players, and I came third. It was my first ever tournament. Walked away with best painted as well, which was good. It was an old Red Corsair army, which I actually just sold very recently too. And yeah, I was just hooked on tournament play, but more on the painting side of things, especially I think because I won the best painted. I was really focused on that, which was pretty cool. Then from there, I think I did like Melbourne in Flames, and then I heard about Arc, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And I went to my first Arc, which was back in 2010, I think. I think that would have been my first Arc. And that's when War All the Time ran Arc. And I just remember the opening to that arc as well. I think they were playing Rage Against the Machine, and a mosh pit actually started up front, and Mark Morrison was there as well, and encouraging the mosh and sing. It was just insane. I'd never seen anything like it, and I was like, "Oh, this is freaking amazing!" And so I've just been attending arcs ever since then, and
Nice.
I really got into the whole arc thing, the whole hobby side of it, and I placed terribly in all my other arcs leading up to the last couple of years. So I was
speaking of your placing, we do have a question from Black Sword in chat, and he said,
Yeah.
as a returning reigning champion, what pressure does that put on you as a player, and how do you think the landscape of the hobby has changed since returning to the hobby?
Good questions. You might have to remind me of the second bit of that one, because I'm going to go off my tangent now. So, being, I guess, the reigning champ, I don't feel the same pressure as if I was trying to get there. I think I can actually sit back and enjoy it now. And one of the aspects I really like about Arc is playing the game with the other person opposite me. It's different to competitive tournaments, Arc, and I'd love to talk about that in a little bit as well, just the difference between how Arc is as a tournament and the competitive tournaments, which
sure.
I love both. I love both.
I like that. I like that conversation too, because I still think that Arc has its challenges. It's not the same challenges people are used to at those sort of competitive tournaments.
Yes, exactly. Because I've actually, placed first at Arc now. I don't think the pressure is there. I think it's just more to have fun, and the other people I play against to have as much fun as I do when I play. For me, the sports side and the hobby side of Arc is the most important bit. The gaming competitive side of it comes a bit later. And I do love a good competitive game at Arc as well, because that's what makes it. My most favorite game I ever played was a good mate of mine, Mark Deal, and it was a Necron army I had versus demons, and it literally came to a 4+ roll at the end of the game, and it was so funny, and we just had so much laughter in that game. It was brilliant, and that's what I want for every game that I play. And that's why I don't think the pressure's there now, although I would love to back it up, because there is a golden ticket on offer. So
there's two. There's two golden tickets. There's one for the overall, and there's one for the best general as well.
Correct. Yeah. So for me at this arc, it is to just have a lot of fun. I love to back it up. I do like that challenge, but first and foremost, it's make a cool army. I've got a story behind the army that I'm taking this year. Make it look good. Make some really cool lore behind it as well. Make some cool characters for it, which I think is one of the best bits about Arc again as well.
Well, that's one of the scoring systems, isn't it? Is
that's exactly it.
Story behind your army, so it is. Yeah, it's worth the effort to work it out.
100%.
And basically, it's just coming back and having fun. But I will try and have a good go at backing it up and getting the first again. Dan actually whispered in my ear last year when I was up there on the podium. He goes, "You got to back it up next year now."
That's one thing I forgot to ask Dan was, do we know if there has been a back-to-back at all? Has there been a 2-time?
I know there's someone that's won, like Leigh has won a bunch of times. I think Sam Panda's won it once or twice as well. Ben Zagami as well, who's obviously TOing it now too. I think he's won it a couple of times. Guest
next week for people that are wanting to hear from a TO as well.
One of the best people you could ever speak to.
I've got some stories about Ben. I've got to build that hype for episode 4.
And I think to answer the other bit of that question, I'm just remembering now as well, how the hobby landscape has changed. It has changed from when I was first in. It's such an in-depth question, I think, that it'd take a really long time to answer. But to go from when I first started playing to what it is now, it is a lot more competitive now. A lot of people really put the pressure on themselves to win, and that goes into the competitive side of things. But I still find it a little bit different when I come to Arc. Every game I sort of have, most people are on the same page as to why they're there. But I did have this fantastic game last year. I think it was round 3. I was going undefeated, and I played Taylor Hill, I think, from New South Wales, and he's a very good Gene Stiller Colts player, and he's a proper competitive player, and he just came to Arc because he heard it was good fun, and 13, 50-point armies and a 6x4 board. He was like, Gene Stealer Cults are going to smash. And he did. I think he came first or second in for best general overall and fifth overall.
Yeah.
And he's a proper competitive player, but I had so much fun in that game as well, even though it was extremely competitive, because I got to flex my competitive side against him as well. And I think I was the only person to keep him from getting a perfect score as well, which was sort of cool.
Yeah.
But then I also cost him best general, so I feel bad about that.
I think touching on that landscape of the like sort of competitive side of hobby changing. Not that I game a tremendous amount, but anyone that's been on the stream knows that I live with a competitive gamer, and he watches a lot. I'm talking a lot of like war games live. So I think the accessibility to high end like competitive tournaments has made the overall level of the regular gamer higher, because they're able to easily see what the best generals in the world are doing with their armies, as opposed to just playing in their local scene and figuring things out themselves.
Yeah, so like I said, I love Arc for its side of things, for the hobby side, but I also love going to the real competitive tournaments and seeing how that plays out, because it's just a different game at the end of the day, as from when you play at Arc to when you play at something that's hyper competitive, because it's 2,000 points always. Lists are designed to be maximized for their best potential. Because I'm more of a painter, I'm very slow to get a well-painted army out there, because I can't play with half-painted models or just to the base now. I have to, even if it's a competitive tournament, it has to be to my sort of level of painting that I like to do.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that.
Yeah. But like, I've been to a couple of the Risky Rollers events. Those guys put on really good tournaments for competitive play. I did their 3-day event at the end of last year, which was good fun. I won only 3 out of my 5 games. I think a few of my mates who are in the chat as well know how bad I am at rolling. Like, there's an actual skill at rolling quite poorly, and I exceed in that skill. So I'm the only person that can roll themselves out of a win.
I think we should have a game.
Oh, I think so too.
I think
if
you've seen my dice rolls, oh boy, we could just have a counter for how many ones are rolled.
Well, actually, I don't roll as many ones. It's always 2s. I always tend to roll 2s.
I can't even roll 2s.
Well, it's because you get the re-roll 1s in a lot of stuff, and then most of your things need 3s to hit. So 2s are what I like to roll. So I don't get my re-rolls. I don't get anything to hit, and it's just sad.
No, yeah, I'm good at 1s into 1s. I'm good at that.
Yeah.
Black Sword has again asked the question, and he said, "Do you prefer to play a new army at Arc every year?"
I try to, if I can, but I have gone back to the Death Guard a few times, just because work and kids, take up the majority of my life. Having 2 small children, doing shift work, all that sort of stuff, it makes it hard. So sometimes you got to go back to what you know. However, when I first took my Death Guard to Arc, it was painted basic green, basic brass, and that was pretty much it. And then the next year, when I had to go and take him again, I decided to paint one of my units, a Plague Mirror unit, with some stripe detail on their armor, which you might have seen in my Instagram.
We're looking at it right now. It's funny.
Yeah, it's
perfect timing.
Psychotic. It was a psychotic thing for me to do, because it takes forever to do that scheme. And then I decided for the last arc, which was last year, to do the entire army in that scheme. And I probably should be wearing glasses now, because I think I'm half blind from it. But it was one of those things, where I had to just keep doing that. But I have taken Necrons. I have taken my Drakari, which was like my first proper army that I was properly collected back in 3rd ed. And then
this is a good segue into your own question to yourself, and it's what armies do you actually collect?
Yeah,
it sounds like basically all of them.
Yeah,
you can see some shelves in the back there. That's got armies. There's shelving this way that you can't see, which has got lots of stuff, and then there's in there like another cupboard, like a whole area full of armies. So I've got a lot of stuff. 40k, my main army is Death Guard. That's what I play competitively as well, because I just know that army back to front. And yeah, I listen to the Disgustingly Resilient podcast a lot as well to learn how to play them. Great podcast for other people to listen to as well if you want competitive Death Guard. So that's my main army. There's a lot of that. Then I've got Necrons, which the reason I took Necrons one year to Arc is when I came third, I won the Void Dragon as one of the prizes. So I was like, all right, I'm taking Necrons next year. So I did that and came ninth with the Necrons, with a new army that didn't really know how to play, which is really cool. What else? I own an Ultramarines army, a Tau army, a Scion army, which is what I'm taking to Arc this year. And that's an army I actually bought after I went to No Retreat. So I'm also one of those people that went to No Retreat over in Gibraltar, same as Damien and Dave Scriven. And yeah, I bought that army when I was at Warhammer World to take to Arc in one of the years. But I painted a lot of it up, but then I just never got around to taking it because they weren't good enough. You know, they're good now, luckily. And I decided that before the rules buffs came in with a Bridgehead Strike detachment. But yeah, so I've got that army. I've got an Imperial Knights army, my Drakari army, a Demon army. I did have a Chaos Space Marine army, which I sold. So yeah, that's just the 40k side of things. I play a lot of AOS. So I've got Stormcast, I've got Cruel Boys, I've got Lumineth. Then there's the old world, and I've got my old Warriors of Chaos army just sitting up in that shelf as well, ready for a game at some stage. So I've got a lot of stuff.
And
Sounds like you're trying to
obviously paint an absolute ton, because I know you're saying that you've got, you know, you obviously your family commitments and your work commitments, but like I'm
so sorry to my partner as well. She is like my rock when it comes to all this sort of stuff, and the amount she allows me to do this stuff. She's actually watching at the moment as well. So hi. Yeah, she's brilliant. She lets me do it. Can't thank her enough.
Yeah, I was looking through your stuff, and like we're back in 2019, which is 6 years ago. But like with the armies that you're talking about, you got painted, like you're getting some serious stuff done, right?
Yeah, another one of my close mates, guy called Rich Wood. I've painted up his Flesh Tearers army for him as well. He's gotten a few other things since then. So, you know, I've painted armies for people as well. When I was a poor uni student, that's how I funded my hobby and also how to live. So, I've done a lot of painting over my time.
One of the people in chat, Buddha, it's more a statement than a question. It said, "Shout out to the hobby wives." I don't know what they are, but they sound cool.
The best.
What is your
They let us do what we do.
What is your favorite army of your armies that you have? I'm going to say it's the Death Guard. And what is your least favorite army? This is a question from chat. If you've got a least favorite, I feel like you probably don't have a least favorite.
Well, so for 40k, my favorite army is the Death Guard because I love painting them. I love playing them. Even though I have the worst luck when it comes to my dice rolls, I still love taking them out and throwing down with them. The army that I dislike the most is also one of the armies that I love the most is my Drakari, just because that army is just being smashed to crap. It's a really well painted army, and the amount of times it's been broken and it's in bits and pieces, and you know, and I try my hardest to win games and I just can't win a game with them. So, you know, I love them, but I hate them at the same time, and I just get frustrated with them. But I had a game with them the other night, and it was actually a lot of fun. So, and in AOS, I just love all of it. AOS is a great game as well. So, love my Stormcast, love my Cruel Boys, love my Lumineth. They're all good.
Yeah, the Drukari are the true glass hammer, aren't they? Of 40k,
both in real life and on the tabletop.
Yeah.
Actually,
so many pointy bits.
Yeah, I was actually taking my army across Maroondah Highway one day to go to House of War to play a game against Dean Sinbeck. And as I was halfway walking across the road, one of the cases slipped, flipped the other one, and everything just smashed all across the Maroondah Highway. So the cases actually somehow opened up and smashed the model. And I was like, oh my God.
I think we were carrying some stuff to the Battleforge Gaming Studio at House of War, and I was making that same trip as you. And I think I had a box of the Tyranids that we had, and I was like, if I drop this, I'm turning around, and I'm done. I'm done in the hobby.
Yeah. It was heartbreaking. Still played the game and then just did a lot of repair. But it's an army I'm going to go back to, one day and it's just going to be a proper repair job and all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah,
that's
Drukhari,
a long time in the
I
future.
love them. They are so cool.
Oh yeah, I've taken them to Arc. They were, I think, the first army I took to Arc, potentially, and yeah, I got like 89th or something with them.
Yeah, I've got a question that wasn't on your list of questions.
Excellent.
It looks like you've got a paint style. It looks very sort of heavy metal inspired with edge highlights.
Yep.
And majority of your armies appear to favor that. This is what you would, well, and we saw some non-metallic metal earlier as well. I was scrolling through some of the Underworld. I think it's Underworld or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Underworld's another great game as well. I own most of the warbands for that because they're just such fantastic sculpts. So yeah, my painting style is probably, I guess, the heavy metal style. That's the easiest to sort of replicate well, and you can practice your highlighting and getting stuff down. I'm practicing some skin tones on one of my art characters that I'm taking, which is also a converted one, which is I'm pretty proud of. But I do want to start to push the skills because there's a lot of fantastic painters that I know, like Andy Bucks, who's won a couple of stuff at the Arc Opens. I chat to him whenever I get a chance to as well, and just seeing his painting, and because I've known him for a few years as well, and it's really inspired me to try a little bit better in my painting, do some non-metallic metals, and push those skills. So I'm hoping I've got time to paint something. I've got something in mind for the Arc Open this year, but first and foremost is my Scions army that I've got to finish. But if I get on top of that pretty well, there's definitely something I want to try with some non-metallic metals, and yeah, really try and actually push that style and get my painting level a little bit higher than what it is at the moment, because I think there's heaps of room for improvement in a lot of my stuff.
Where are the Scions at? How close do you think you're going to be cutting it with the Scions?
I have an army that's good to go, essentially. So if for some reason I couldn't paint for up until Arc, I've got stuff to take, which is good. It won't be as good as what I could take, or it won't include the characters I want to tank. I've got the new Aquilon models as well, which I'm putting into the list just because they look so cool. They have to go in. So I'm painting them up at the moment, as well as some extra bits and pieces. I'm trying my hand at some sculpting as well on some of my characters, just doing little bits and pieces.
I did see that. Some great stuff sculpting, yep.
Yeah. So I've got a bit to paint, and painting to the level I try and paint at as well. It does take a while. So the pressure is on to get it done in time, because life happens. As I said, I work shift work with a lot of overtime. So sometimes I'm just, out of the game for a week or two with painting. Like I start a night shift coming up this week, so that'll just be no painting for, 7 or 8 days. And I'll have a few more of those coming up between now and Arc. So, you just lose all this time all of a sudden. So you think you got the time, all of a sudden it's not there, and you just go, uh-oh, it's around the corner now, and I've got and I freak out when I've got 3 or 4 models to paint. There's like a month before Arc, but I know how long it takes me to do stuff. I freak out. Whereas I've got mates that have got I've got half an army to paint in 2 weeks. Yeah, that'll be fine. I'll smash it out, and they can do it.
Yeah. So
they make it look good too.
We've got 2 more questions. One of the questions was actually one of your questions to yourself, but we'll ask Ash's question first. He went to his first Arc last year, and he's interested to know if there is one thing you really don't like to see in a game from your opponent, and that really impacts your sports score for them.
Yeah, so for me, the big thing with Arc, it's play the game with someone. And that should be the thing that you do with that person. And I think you should also make it really clear, and this is an Arc thing as well, let the person know what your aim is for that weekend. Because Arc has so many different things you can win, that you can aim for, that you can aspire to. I think a really good conversation to have with your opponent. And it's not like a serious conversation. I'm here to come first. And it should be, I'm here because I want to take home the best presented army. And I'm just here to roll dice and have fun. Who cares what happens? We'll do take backsies. We'll do all that sort of stuff. That's great. Or, you could say, yeah, look, I am actually aiming for best general, but I'll try and play the enemy, but I'm here to score as many points as I can. But as you know, Arc, it's different to other tournaments where it's not really about the wins, losses. It's about the battle points you score.
Yep.
So, you could say, look, I am going to aim for my max battle points, but what I'll try and do as well is help you play this game so you can try and score points. You don't feel left out. And I think that's what the real high-end players can do as well. So for myself, like, because I do play in that competitive environment, I can take an average army, and the army I'm taking is not going to be maximized for bridgehead strike. I'm taking some silly things like an Ogren bodyguard in a command squad, which you wouldn't do in a competitive list, but I'm doing it because it's fun. But because I know how to play the game relatively well, it could seem like it's really strong. And that was like with my Death Guard that I took last year. I was scoring an average of 60 points for most games. Like when you average out, I think it was like 69 battle points I'd score. But, you know, I knew how to play it well. So I'd tell the person, yeah, look, I'm going to be playing for points, but I'm also playing for fun as well. So if you want to do take backsies, things like that, if you make a mistake, that's fine. We just take it back and we redo it. And, you know, you play that game with the person. Or if you are going to go for that big win, just tell them that and just go, look, I am doing it. Just so you set that expectation, because it is Arc. When you go to a competitive tournament, we all know why we're there. It's to win, get the W on that on the scoreboard. Arc is very different. So have that conversation with your opponent. That's the best thing I think you could do.
Yep. Awesome. And then this sort of leads into you being a veteran of Arc, and it sort of crosses your question as well to yourself. So Black Sword has asked, what advice would you give to someone attending their first Arc this year? And I suppose it crosses into your question of why Arc is a great event for beginners, casual hobbyists, and competitive players.
Yeah, so if it's your first Arc, just go for the pure enjoyment of it. Read through the player pack so that way you don't get surprised by anything. But you just got to remember that, you know, it doesn't score like a normal tournament. It's not like a normal tournament. You have to tackle it because it's such a holistic event. Competitive events, it's you get the battle points, you know, you get the win, and that's what you're there for. Your army doesn't have to be all painted, although they do best presented and things like that as a side award. Arc is a whole different beast. It's, you know, if you're going for your first time, I just say read the player pack, try and tick off all the boxes that you can, but don't put yourself under any pressure to get all those tick box points. Don't stress about it, and go there and aim to have fun and actually meet people at this event. Go chat to people. Go chat to, you know, guys like yourselves that are going to be there. Just get to know the people in the community, because everyone is so welcoming, and, you know, they want to show off their stuff, or they want to check out your stuff as well. Like for anyone that sees me there, invite me over to come have a look at your army, because I love doing it. Tell me about it. I love it. I've been lucky enough to go around the world and check out stuff like that. I've been to no retreat and seen the high level of paint jobs and the players that go there. Like, you know, I got to meet all the YouTubers and stuff that, you know, quite big, and see their stuff and talk to them. So, you know, I love coming back here and just talking to everyone. So if it's your first Arc, do that and make these friendships with people, and you know, have as much fun with it as you can. And when you start to attend it a few more times, take that army you took previously, get points off guys like Damien as well, who does your paint judging, and you know, yourself, Justin, I can see your paint work and it's beautiful. You know, get pointers off these people that have this knowledge and improve your army. Like I did with my Death Guard, I painted those silly stripes on there, you know, to give me the extra points. But that's what you do, and then, you know, improve your lore, improve your display board as well. You start to incrementally try and get those tick boxes to the highest point you can, and always look at just being the best sport you can. Always aim for that 8, 9, 10 sportsmanship score with your opponent, because you want to have fun at the end of the day. And the battle points, so what for your first one? It doesn't matter. My first Arc, I think I was 100 and something out of 120, 130 players. Yeah. But I had the best time ever, mostly because of that mosh pit that I saw at the start. But yeah, so that's your first time Arc. And why do I think Arc is good for the beginner? Well, that's why I reckon it's good for the beginner. For the hobbyist, this is where you really get to flex your hobby muscle as well. A really close friend of mine, Rick Vavulik, who pretty much 99.9% of the hobbyists out there will know him. You know, he made this amazing display board last year where you opened up a briefcase and there was his Gene Stealer Cold Army in there. And it was like a Mechanicum sort of factory. And it was one of the most amazing things I'd seen, you know. And that was a real flex of the hobby muscle. You know, for me, I love my painting. So I'm trying to flex out my painting skill, and just, you know, people can actually have a look at it and go, oh, wow, that's a really well painted army. That feels cool to play against, like a really highly detailed army painted to that level. If you really like your lore side of things, have a really good lore reason behind everything in your army and really flex that muscle out. That's what's really good about this tournament as well, because you get the points, you get to, you know, do that sort of stuff and really enjoy it and just go all out. And that's the best thing when you go and see these insane display boards there as well, which I'll never have the time to do. It's just fascinating to look at this.
Speaking of which, Scriv has asked, what are you doing for your display board, actually?
I've got an idea.
Apparently not much, Scriv.
I've got an idea. I've still got to execute it. It's in my head at this stage, and it's going to fit the lore and theme. So I'm actually going to do for my army list and my lore this year. It's a signed contract for my Scion force that, you know, is and it's the army list will be done as like, this is the requisition that you're getting, and you're signing a contract to take and use these forces. So that's my idea this year, to make it look pretty cool, and I have it sort of framed sitting next to the display board as well. So you can probably start to get the idea of what I'm trying to do with that one, because I've got a whole lore and whole reason behind this force, which I think should be good fun to get out there. And the other reason why I think Arc is a great tournament for competitive players, 1350 points is a different sort of ball game to play in as well. I think they're going back to 60 by 44 inch boards this year as well. So the smaller board, because last year it was a 6x4 board, so it was massive and open. I think this year it's going back to the actual regulated boards. It's yeah, so it's you know, an interesting points level to play at, because there was a great video recently by Matt from Mini Wargaming saying why 1,000 points is the best way to play 40k, and it does remind me of when I used to play 3rd edition. That's what you get in about 1350 points is what you used to get in a full size army back then, which was, you know, your 1500 to 1850 points. So it's a different way to play the game. It's a different way to you know, flex out your tactical muscle and just see how you go. And if you're a competitive player playing against a person that's pretty new at Arc, I think it's really good to teach and coach them when you're there. So this is how you can look at, you know, playing your army. This is what you can do to increase it up to those 2,000 point games as well. Consider doing this, consider doing that. So it's great if you're a really good hardcore competitive player to actually teach these people, because Arc for a lot of people is their first tournament, and it's their first big tournament. So you can take them under your wing and show them actually how to play the game, coupled with, you know, the other people that are there, showing them how to hobby. It's great. So that's why I think Arc is a good all-round tournament.
Yeah, I think people that are going to Arc that are normally just the 100% competitive, geared hobbyist, I think they should just look at it as an alternate challenge. How do I push myself as a hobbyist to try and score the highest I possibly can at this tournament? And it might be some stuff that, you know, it's not your strong suit. It might be the painting or the sports score. And the sports score comes down to, like you said, helping people that are new, you know, someone, you know, reminding them of some rules that they might not know.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because like I've played against every type of person at Arc, people that are extremely competitive minded. And like I said, I had that great game last year. I think I only scored 30 battle points in that one, 35 battle points. And but I learned so much in playing that game. And I was so grateful that I got to have a game like that against such a high quality opponent. And, you know, and he was also that type of guy that, you know, would go, oh yeah, if that doesn't, yeah, let's take it back and go again. And, you know, that was great. That's why, you know, he was such a competitive player, but I scored him so high in sports because it was chill for him as well. He was teaching me stuff. And then I think even in the same tournament, I was playing against people that, you know, weren't as good. So I was coaching them with my intermediate, you know, knowledge in competitive play. But as you were saying, Justin, it's 100% right. If you're a competitive player, focus on, take a 1350 point army and improve the paint job on it or something, you know, focus it from that way and up your painting skill and just try something a little bit different.
Yeah,
so
it's just a completely different challenge. So instead of just scoring points in your battles, like you've got this whole little second area which everyone can work on. Like everyone can work on it. It's I would say it's arguably easier to be better and higher placed at an Arc tournament than it would be at a regular tournament, because you need to learn a heap of stuff to play competitive gaming. Like my housemate is nuts. Watching and practicing and like it's like a sport. How much effort needs to go into it.
It is, and look, that's also why I enjoy the competitive side of the game, because you get to focus on that and just go, how do I become a better player at this as well? Because I think it is, if you're a really good player, I think it's actually really good for your opponent as well at the end of the day, because you can adjust your skill level essentially to play against them. Yeah. And one of the big things I do want to say, if you are from that competitive background, you are thinking of coming into Arc to give it a go, don't have the same expectation as if you're going to a competitive 2,000 point tournament, because you will be disappointed. You got to have a different mindset when you come into this one, because it is done in such a different way, and it's all about the soft scores. I remember when 5th edition tournaments and 6th edition, it was all about the soft scores and having comp scores and that as well, so balancing your army in a whole different way, whereas now it's just
I remember the comp scores with 6th edition, so it was like almost a secondary point system to your armies to say how difficult they were to verse, and now it's just voted by your opponent, I believe, the your list score. So you don't want to come in too soft with your list, because some people will be like, that was way too easy and I demolished you. So it's about finding that sort of middle ground with it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet again, that goes to setting that expectation with your opponent as well. If you're coming from that competitive background, just tell them, I play this competitively, this army list. I know it in and out. So I've taken essentially a soft version of it. But because I know it so well, it's going to feel like it's a really overpowered army, just because I know how to play it. I know where to maneuver. I know how to stage these units. It's just because, like when I played last year, I just knew the Death Guard in and out. I knew how to use what they call the Plod Squad real well, which is, the Biologist Putrefier, the Foul Blightspawn with a 10-man Plague Marine squad and a Rido. If you know how to position it and then move it out, it does devastating damage, and you can just wipe stuff out with it. And it feels overpowered. But if you know how to play against it, if you know all that, you can mitigate it quite easily. So, and that was just one of the things. I just knew how to use it. I knew how to use the rest of my army, and it did well for me. And I didn't take that strong of an army.
Leading into Arc missions here, how much do you practice prior to going to Arc? Like, you say you're in the competitive side of things, and obviously you would practice 2,000 point lists. Do you spend any time prior to the event rolling dice with your 1350 list?
Yeah, so I've got like my core group of guys that I game with as well, and shout out to all them. I roped them all into a photo at Arc last year to say thanks for all the practice games. So yeah, we try and get together and do some practice games. So we use the previous year's missions if it's the same edition that we're playing, or if it's easily to modify it into the edition. So like 9th edition missions were easy to convert into 10th and stuff. And we just use those to do a bit of practice, because the missions are wacky. They are a bit weird as well. And that's the other thing you've got to realize when coming to Arc. It's you're not playing your set Leviathan or Pariah Nexus competitive mission deck missions. It's bespoke missions. And you got to get used to that as well. So you got to accommodate for everything in your list. So when I practice, it's to accommodate that sort of stuff, something wacky or zany in one of the rules and in the mission rules. So yeah, I try and get at least 5 to 6 practice games in, so I at least know my army list, because I knew the Death Guard pretty well. I didn't need as much last year, but this year I need a lot more, because I'm not used to such a shooting army with the Scions and precise positioning and maneuvering and setting up and all that sort of stuff. I've had 2 practice games so far, and they've 1 win, 1 loss, and high scoring for all of it. And my opponents were high scoring because they were killing my stuff pretty easy, but I was killing them pretty easy too. So yeah, but if anyone wants a practice game, let me know, hit me up. If you're in the southeast suburbs, all for it.
Well, we'll definitely have a couple of people from our chat that would be down for a roll. And I mean, I do have my 1350 list that I was going to take last year before we had to go to DreamHack. So we could roll some low dice together.
Oh, I love it. All for it.
We got some more questions on here. I think we've covered a lot of this stuff prior to even asking questions. Like, you'd already touched on some other events you've been to, like SN, the No Retreat, which is just, that's sort of my, like, I know we're promoting Arc here. We're promoting Arc here, but oh my God, would I love to go to a No Retreat. That would just be so cool.
Oh, yeah. So I think I was the first out of like me, Damien, and Dave Scriven to go to Arc as an Aussie. I know there's been other Aussies before me, but they were living in the UK and stuff, so it was a bit easier for them to go across.
Count.
Yeah, it doesn't, not miles. And I remember I was just like, I think it was 8th edition when I went, and so the Death Guard had just been released then, so that's what I took as well. And I was saying to my partner, like, oh, look, we're planning on an overseas trip. Look, I'd like to apply for this tournament. I probably won't get in, so because you have to apply and you have to send photos of your army. You also have to have a bit of an Instagram following as well, because that's what they're all about. It's about, you know, people that are sort of known in the community that will help promote it. It's a, you know, you got to do your application, then you get the invite and all that sort of stuff. So it's a very selective process. And I was like, oh, they're not going to say yes to me, but I'll throw my hat in the ring and see how we go. And I think out of the 140 applicants, I made the cut. And they had 44 players that year. So it was No Retreat 7 that I went to. And yeah, that's where I got to know Lawrence Baker pretty well from Tabletop Tactics. I still talk to him. I've painted some stuff for the channel as well. So you've probably seen some of my miniatures on there, the Cypher and Inquisitor Greyfax on their battle reports. So I've painted it for them. And Lawrence is as nice as on camera as he is in person as well. He's actually nicer in person. So, and he's a hell of a player, because I played him in round 2 as well. And it was one of the best games of 40k I've ever had in my life.
Was that did he win 7, I think?
He didn't win that one. Winter's SEO won that one. Just pipped him, I think. So so I came 11th and Lawrence came 13th. But it was literally one of the best games I've ever had. He's such a good player. He's so nice. And got to know Stig pretty well. Also just as nice. And a lot of, you know, Pardo and the team at SN as well were just top tier hosts, and they run such a good tight event. And there's a lot of similarities between it and Arc, but for very different reasons, but also very the same. It just does feel like a top tier event, and you know, everyone's so welcoming. And yet again, it was just and I still talk to, oh God, when did I go? 2017, 2018, something like that. So it's quite a few years ago now, but I'm still in contact with a lot of the guys, and still talk to them. And you know, it was just such a good way to, you know, network with people internationally with the hobby, and then you bring that experience back as well, and you can talk about it and use it to influence the way you do things as well within your own communities back home.
Yeah. We've got a question from Nath in chat here, and he's asked, what's your preferred brush brand for your painting, and what's your favorite sized brush? Because this guy that asked this question uses a size 7 to do edge highlights. He's an absolute psychopath.
So my favorite brushes to use, I just use the Citadel brushes because that's just all I've known. I've contemplating buying some Winsor and Newton.
Love to hear it.
I had contemplated buying some Artis Opus Winsor and Newton and stuff like that, but I just haven't bit the bullet yet to buy the right brushes. I just haven't got enough experience, I guess, in alternate brushes. But I'm holding here the extra small Artificer layer. It's
people
my best friend. I've got
people would see that real up close on my channel a lot.
Yeah. But I actually don't mind some of the bigger. So the medium-sized brushes and small brushes I find really good as well for when they got a good point. They're actually great for edge highlighting as well. It's just when you really need the fine detail, this bad boy, I'm all about it.
Yeah. I've got some Artis Opus. I picked them up when they first came out, when they were on a Kickstarter. Took ages to get them. They just don't have the springy bristles like the Artificer. So very fine tip, just a different bristle. So look,
and I think that's it. It's just
brushes are very
different brushes, and
brushes are very personal. I find it's all about finding what works for you. Because I've recommended Artificer to people, and they've used it, and I've been like, I didn't like that, and I was just like, wow, okay, yep.
What is wrong with you? This is what I live by. It's how I painted. I've gone through so many of those brushes, and I try to look after my brushes, but as you've probably seen on my Instagram, the amount of models that I painted over the years, which is thousands, you just burn through brushes. Doesn't matter how well you look after them. And I've got probably about 8 extra small Artificer brushes that are just wrecked.
They just get downgraded and used for other stuff.
And that's what I use them for. I use them for small washes, for doing certain, yeah, just a whole bunch of different things. So I tried to keep metallic brushes separate to normal paint brushes, all that sort of stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
All fantastic things to do.
Exactly.
I think we've almost come to all of your topics answered. Have you got any questions that you prepped, Marvin? Because I know that I had like around 97 questions, but we've crossed off a lot of them as well. So.
I had 98, but they've all been crossed as well.
Oh, nice. Nice.
No, I can't really think of anything else.
We do have the final sort of, I guess, point, which is an interesting point about your partner and the podcast that she runs. It's a little bit bigger than our podcast, just by a small amount.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's probably listening as well. So I'm sorry, Mel. But yeah, I'm really proud of your work. So she's the creative director of Case File, the true crime podcast. So if you need something to listen to whilst you paint, yeah, definitely check them out. They have a couple of people that listen, I think.
It's just a few.
Somewhere in the millions or something like that.
Yeah. So it turns out there's millions more people that want to hear about murderers than want to hear the BFG podcast. Well, get on it. Get on the BFG podcast.
Well, maybe you got to incorporate a bit of true crime into your.
Oh, maybe. I'll start to rate some stuff.
Yeah. Actually, that's my question for you guys. What do you listen to when you paint? And what do you have on in the background?
Well, I mean, mine would just be stereotypical, having Justin stream on.
I don't tend to do
side
too
of the
much.
Stream.
I don't tend to do too much painting off stream anymore. Most of my painting is on stream, but if I am painting off stream, if I'm like hyper motivated to finish something off, I will typically have Twitch on in the background, just watching a gamer. Just some of my favorite gamers where I can sort of just zone out. I don't know.
Yeah, nice.
It's more about just having something in the background. Occasionally, I just used to listen to music too. So we do have another
I always
question.
love. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Black Sword has asked again, is there an army that you would warm your heart if you saw it being used at Arc? So is there an army you want to see at Arc that you've
good
or
question.
you'd want to play against? Have you got like a dream? Have you got a dream list or dream army you'd like to play against?
Or maybe when see?
That is such a good question.
Blood Angels.
I was about to say that. If I had to be really greedy, and this is going to sound so basic, but I love a well-painted ultramarine army. There's just something about the blues and golds that are really striking with it. I love seeing it. Would love to play against it and love to kill them. But I also own an ultramarines army myself. Just something about a really nicely painted ultramarine army I really, really enjoy seeing. Because maybe it is because I love the heavy metal art style, and you grow up seeing all the ultramarine stuff and all that. Like, I absolutely love it. But the other one that I would love to play against and see, and I'd love to do it myself one day, is a Deathcore Krieg army in full.
Oh man, the new stuff.
New models. Yeah. That's yet again me being very greedy and wanting to see that. So if someone has a Deathcore Krieg army and they want to have a game against me, you are welcome. Just come at me. I love it. Hordes of infantry, that's what I want.
My dream army that I want to see, and I'm hoping this will motivate Marvin, is the full, we've been discussing it quite a lot, the full 2,000 point Kroot army. Just 2,000 points of pure Kroot. Nothing like a couple of Vespids sprinkled in, but just Kroot for as far as you can see.
What was his name? Tim Roberts, I think, at Arc used to run the full Kroot army. Don't know how well painted it was, but it was a full Kroot army, yeah. And he took it multiple times.
Yeah, I would love to see it. We do have another question. What's your favorite model that you've painted, and why?
Favorite model
out of all the models, is there one that's just like your number one?
Oh, that is such a good question. Why didn't I think someone would actually ask that? I think for me, some of my favorite models to paint have been the Underworlds models. I entered some into the Arc Open last year, and I got some commended entries, which was really cool. And I really love painting those because there was just something about the way they're designed, and just especially the Dread pageant that I painted as well. I was able to have a real crack at NMM on them, and I think I pulled it off okay. In the end, like there's a lot of stuff I see that I'd improve on it, but really, really love that. What I'd love to go back and actually paint the lion again. So I painted a quick one, knocked a quick one up for a mate, but I'd love to actually get that model and actually really spend some time painting that one, using it as like a display piece rather than a gaming piece, because half the time I get stuck between painting a piece that's good for gaming and one that's good for display.
Yep. Never
really done too much that's just pure display. Like that's where I sort of faltered in my first ever Arc open entry, which was the Tau Cold Star Commander, because I have a growing Tau army. So I painted it for both gaming and for display, which I think was the really wrong mindset going in. It has to be one or the other. And I got a little bit stuck, and I really loved painting that model as well, just because of the way it's designed. So yeah, favorite models, the Lion, and I think, yeah, the Tau Commander model is just brilliant to paint.
Yep. Yeah, I'll agree. I do like both of those models. The multi-part Commander model is fantastic. I painted one years ago, and I keep talking about redoing another Tau army at some point, but who knows? It all takes so long, doesn't it?
Everything takes forever. I love it. I paint most nights if I can, but yeah, stuff still takes forever.
Yeah. I think on that note, guys, that's been a pretty good episode there. We've actually pushed almost an hour.
Beautiful.
Leigh, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
We've got some more interviews coming up. So we've got Ben Zagami turning up next Tuesday. So same time next week. He's a TO. I know we've got some more coming up as well. So there's, I think, 13 weeks until Arc or something like that. We may have room to have some return guests. So if you've got more time to chat and we're looking for a guest, we might shout out and say,
hey,
what's up?
Yeah, I'd always be happy to return. I'm here. I'm available, and if people can think of more questions or they want to see some progress up, happy to jump back on.
Yeah, and this will be uploaded on YouTube. So if you guys have missed any of it, you'll be able to check it out on the Battle Forge Gaming YouTube. We'll put all the appropriate links for people's like Instagrams and the Arcfest website and all that good stuff on there as well. So thank you very much for your time again, Leigh. Thank you, Marvin, for your time. And we'll jump back into the paint stream. Thank you very much, chat, for all your questions. And yeah, I'll be back shortly. Thank you, guys.
Bye.